Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and today was basically just a trading range day. Um, as you can see, we had this upper half of the range, and then it looks like in the later half of the day, prices moved on down, and it's I would say this low was probably more like that, and this one may even be. That's where I was calling. That's where you're getting the most touches with the closes. If you followed my stuff, you know that's where I usually like to find to place my line, and I'll move it around the day. Like earlier, it was up here, like in this range, and as the day moved on, I got more touches and more closes right across here. So I kind of adjusted as the day goes. But when I came, and you can see that's a range day, but it's a big enough range day where you've got a trend working both ways. I traded this completely as a range, and I traded this as a trend down, a little correction, and then a trend up, and then I traded this as a range. So that's how I traded the day. If you were still trading this afternoon, you can see it bounced right down here again and came back and closed right in the middle of where it spent most of the day anyway during the regular trading hours. Back out just a little to make it easier to see. You can see that. And we got about an equal overshoot up here. It's almost about the same as what we overshot down here, and that's pretty typical. So not a lot of trades today, but there were some good trades. I kind of like these kind of channels because they're so predictable. They're really easy to trade. All you have to do is really kind of wait for the reversal and and get in at the right place. There were some clues that it may not bounce this time. You can notice that you got this double top. And then this one's a little bit, it's a tick lower, then this is lower than that, and then this is lower, and then another little double top that's lower, and then this was lower, another little double top. That's a clue that prices are going to probably break on through. Notice this one right here, we were making a little higher high each time up till we got up here, and then we fell and broke and came down. And notice it didn't go out, it bounced back in. So that's one of the clues. People often ask me, what was the clue that we may go lower here? And that's it. You can see that the bounces are not bouncing nearly as hard each time. So the buyers are losing control and the sellers are taking over, and then suddenly they drive it lower, and then it bounces and the buyers all come back again right at the previous low. So that's pretty typical. That's what you'll see. Let's talk about the trades. Also, actually, before we get started talking about the trades, just a little bit of housekeeping stuff. You probably heard me talk about the weather yesterday if you saw the video, but we've had some extremely cold weather here in my part of the country where we don't normally get this kind of weather. We were down around 5 degrees and didn't get above freezing here for 3 or 4 days, and that's not normal here. And so I've had some issues with some of my rental properties with water lines freezing and busting. I had a building where um, the sprinkler system froze and busted. So I'm going to be a little distracted for a few days as I deal with some of this stuff. So if the lesson may be a little bit later or it might be earlier, and it's a possibility that tomorrow I may not even have one if I'm tied up with that. But I'm still trying to trade a little bit and to make my living, and then to deal with the problems that I've got due to the weather around here. So, but if I'm not answering emails quickly, or you don't see the chart lesson on schedule like you would expect to, right, somewhere in the early afternoon, you'll know why. But let's talk about the trades and move on. I got to get out of here. Early when I came in today, this looked like a trading range. You can see kind of the high and the low from the previous day, and so when I came in this morning, you can see that. So we were within that same range. So this looked a lot like a trading range. I did draw the channel just in case, but when we bounced out of there, that was a nice place to get long, right there if you were trading that early, because there's no surety that this is a channel. It looks more like a range, and the fact that you had all those matching lows and then the break and then that reversal bar right there, I just use a stop right there. Easy scalp, came right back and got the runners. And I didn't like going long here because we kind of had that failed break higher there above that, and that is a second entry short. Notice that's a new low, first entry, second entry, and that's a kind of a reversal bar. Notice how prices traded way up here and turned and closed almost on the very low. Um, so I like that for a short. I originally had my trend line drawn off these closes right here, so it looked like a break and a new high too. But I later adjusted it when we kept bouncing up through there. But I was already in the trade. It was a fairly quick and easy scalp, but then it took off again. I didn't like going long here because I figured, I was looking for prices to come up here and maybe even up here and test this high. But when they turn back down right here, now even though I adjusted this, you do have your break of this little channel here, and we still didn't have a retest of this low from this channel, and this channel fits pretty well, but I was leaning more towards a trading range. I actually had this up here like so at that point, and I kind of adjusted it down just like that, and you can see we get the most touches there with closes, then we broke below it, so it was kind of like this long was almost like a failed break lower, but you didn't even need that because you had all those matching lows and congestion there, and if there was a channel, it was way back up here, but when we went higher there, it was tempting to go long there, but because of that trend line and the fact that we were holding the closes inside it, and no long, I was more interested in a short, but when it bounced again, I really wanted to go long right there, but I just didn't trust it. And if you went long there, it's really aggressive. It's a higher low, um, but there's a channel here and there's a channel here, so we were kind of like in no man's land. This was the more this channel was more taking more precedence in my opinion. And some of you may end up asking me, why didn't I start up here? Well, that's in the previous day. I usually start all my channels in the current day. You can generally find everything you need in the current day, and rarely do you have to go back. The only time I really look back is for previous highs and lows like these two, looking for where we might find support or resistance. So other than that, I usually get everything off the current day's chart. So anyway, I like that for a short, and then we made a pretty much I would call a measured leg up. There's your first leg, and then you had your little correction, and there's your second leg, and it's for the most part, actually I think it is a perfect measured move. You can see that, and then prices, and look at that bearish bar. I love that setup because now they had people trapped to the upside, and there was resistance right along here as well. You can see that. You get the most touches right across there, and that's exactly where it turned off. So I liked that one, especially if you didn't get short already when it tried to go higher and turn back down again and closed on its low. You could have even jumped in right there for the most part. You don't know that it's going to do this, and somebody actually posted a message on the or a comment on in the premium section. They were asking about um, runners and how many times prices come back and get the exact runner, and that is correct, and my reply to that is as follows. If you're going to try to use runners, you have to use them on every trade, because if you pick and choose, you'll always get it wrong and you'll just lose money and it'll look like none of them ever work. But if you hold a runner for every trade and you're taking the right trades, you're going to get enough runners like right here to make a lot of extra money. And so you never know when they're coming. I would have never guessed this was going to shoot down like that. But if you hold the runner, you get to ride this all the way down. And if you just waited until the first break of another bar, you would have gotten out here. And if you just waited for, to start seeing some real congestion, you probably would have waited, got out right in here, and maybe got a few extra ticks or something like that. But there's not enough reason to really exit even here. It's just a one tick, and it turned down instantly again and went lower. But when it started kind of gaining some traction here, especially way away from the EMA like that, that's probably where I would cover if I were in that trade. So I liked going long here simply for the reason that we had this failed break lower. Then we had a first, so notice that's a new low. You're correct, and there's your first entry. You go a little higher, and there's a second entry. It fails and turns up and closes almost on its high. So I like going long there. Easy scalp. Again, it comes back and gets the runners, but then it goes again. And another reversal. That's the first break. And that's pretty obvious. That's a nice little tight channel right there. It's fitting perfectly on both sides. You get the break. Look at that big reversal bar. Just go long right there. Put a stop there. Um, and off it goes. And again, any runners are safe here. And guess where they find resistance? Right up there at yesterday's closing. And that's probably where you want to exit. Then we make a little, the highs were actually right across there. You make this little failed break, and look at that reversal right there. And normally I would tell you to wait on the second entry, which came over here, so there is a setup there. But I liked this for a short simply because this is congestion. And you know, if you follow my stuff, you know why this is congestion, because there's strong resistance right here. And notice we're a good bit away from the EMA and hadn't been back to it since right here. And so when that big reversal bar turn on that failed break above this, plus the failed break out of this, the odds are we're coming back to that EMA. And this, you know, this is looking like a range day. We've already had the break of the channel and a new leg up and then a failed move higher. So I like that for a short. I don't think that's very aggressive either because, you know, all the clues are there. And, but if, you know, you're waiting on the second entries, it didn't come till here. And, it kind of, you had this somewhat of congestion here, but this is, so you might have, the entry really didn't come to right here, although that's your signal bar, so that's why you might have even gone short under that one, but you probably needed to wait on this one. And so your short was really right here, and then you'll probably say, well, why, you know, there's congestion there, but guess what? Here's your new high. First entry long, pull back. There's a failed second entry long right there, so go short right there. I really probably should just circle that whole little area right there. But that's where your trade really triggered. If you were real aggressive, you might have gone short below that bar. Another easy scalp, and then guess what? You find support right here, much like the resistance up here. But the main reason you go long here is you got a new low, first entry short, second entry short. It tested that area twice right there, and it held and turned up and gives you a second entry long. So you just about have to take that trade right there. Remember the rule, anytime the prices test something twice and fail, they're probably going to go further in the other direction. And where do we go? Right back up to the other side. And this is almost a repeat pattern of that. And you hear me talk about repeat patterns. When you see them again, they usually work the same way they worked the first time. You get the little congestion right at resistance here. You break higher, it fails. Look at that reversal bar. And that's a second entry short. Notice it would really be a second entry short counting from here. First entry, pullback, and then second entry. And that's the way I counted that one. Don't spend too much time trying to figure out why that's a second entry if you're learning second entries, because that confuses people. So don't spend a lot of time worrying about trying to figure that one out. It's not an easy one to see, and it's not a pure second entry based on the way we teach the rules. So just don't, like I said, don't get too caught up in that, because I know I'll get 100 emails about that. But then you get two legs down, and where does it bounce? Once again, look at that little reversal bar. Bounces right off that low. Easy place to go long. Easy scalp, and then we're kind of hung up there again. This is kind of no man's land all across the center here. Look how flat that EMA is. You got clear highs here and clear lows here. So we're looking for shorts off these highs. You get a double top here with a lower high, a reversal type bar. I went back and forth whether or not to make that one green, but I think that's a good short. All this did was just kind of move down. You can see there, now you're getting the most touches in the closes right across that level. So a nice place to go short right there. It kind of hung up for a minute, so it made me nervous, but notice how nothing could ever break above, and then all of a sudden finally it drops and it comes all the way down. And again, any runners, they came back and got them here, but any runners would have still been worth a couple of 3 points there. And then that was the last trade I marked for the day. And again, you didn't really want to go long off of this stuff here, because notice how these lows are getting lower each time. That's not a good sign. That's actually clue that we're probably going to break on through. The buyers are steadily losing control here, and the sellers are starting to take over, and then they drive it all the way down, and guess where it bounces? Down here where you had some resistance or some support this morning during the overnight hours. And that was pretty much it for today. So I hope all that made sense to you. I'm not going to go into any more details much more about today. It's just a trading range day with two halves basically. You had a nice trend down and then a nice trend up, and then we spent the majority of the day right there. Um, and but I love these kind of channels here because they're so predictable, and it's even predictable of giving you clues of when it's going to fail. And and you might have even considered going long right here on this failed break lower. But, this one, there's not a good setup. You really needed to wait on a second entry, and you don't get one till way up here, and then it's too late, and you see it would have failed. Um, so there was no setup on that one. That's the reason you don't see anything, and then I didn't mark anything. This is all no man's land. Just stay out of it. It's too late in the day. There's too much overlap. Um, there's nothing really clear about it. There's too much support here to be getting short down here, and it looks like it's going to break through, but you can't trade it that way. That's against our rules because most of the time, if you're following the stuff, you know why we can't go short right there, because it'll break down and do just like it did here and reverse on you and stop you out or whatever. If you wanted to go short, you had to do it here. And this did fall in time for our rules. That's a little breakout pullback short. So if you wanted to go short, you would have had to do it here, and it would have been a nice trade, and you would have got a couple points out of any runners there as well, depending on how you played it. So, but I'm going to wrap it up. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.